Welcome. Thanks for watching this live whenever you do watch it. Um, yeah, so I want to basically attempt to answer a question that's been put before me. Um, let's say several times in the last couple weeks. It keeps coming up, so I was like, well, I guess I'll talk about it. So this question is, what is the purpose of relationships? So, you know, not and not just romantic relationships, that kind, but just all human relationships. But I would say with an emphasis on, those romantic relationships, partnerships, so forth. So it's interesting in Vedic astrology, they talk about the killer houses. So the two killer houses are the second house of wealth, resources, even money, and then the seventh house of all human relationships. And they call them the killer houses just because they can be so challenging. So yeah, so I find that interesting. They can be very rewarding, but extremely challenging. So yeah, what is the purpose? So to sum it up, I would say the purpose of relationships is alchemy. So, what is alchemy? Probably a lot of you watching this are familiar, some people not so much. Alchemy is all about transformation and transmutation. So, on the surface of it, it's all about taking something that is less valuable, less desirable, and transforming it and transmuting it into something more desirable. But really, when you get deeper into it, it's about changing your perspective. And if it's like the hypercubes. If you change your perspective on the hypercube, it looks like a totally different shape, but it's not. Um, it's fifth dimensional look at something. So, yeah. So the alchemy. So the alchemy, transmuting something that's seemingly less desirable and valuable into something more desirable and valuable. But really, it's just about a perspective and an attitude change. And perspective and attitude change, they change your whole life, and they potentially change the whole world. So yeah, when most people think of alchemy, you think about the alchemists in ancient times and medieval times, Renaissance times, even in the early modern period, like the 1600s. And then after that, it seems to have kind of gone underground. So, in these legends about these alchemists, they were, turning lead into precious metals like silver and gold. So, I think there was some basis to this, some scientific basis. One thing, England, first central bank in Europe, so the whole parasite of central banking, came out of its incubator in the Mediterranean basin and the Middle East, found its way to England. And shortly thereafter, the King of England, I want to say it was maybe William of Orange, was prompted by the Bank of England to outlaw alchemy because they were afraid that it would devalue the price of gold, would basically cause inflation. So that's telling. Now, in modern science, they've actually found too that there are bacteria that can eat things like animal dung and excrete, basically poop out gold. So that's interesting. And the alchemists probably knew this because in a lot of their manuscripts they talk about putrefying animal dung. So anyway, I think there is something to it, scientifically, practically, and physically, but for our purposes, it's symbolic and allegorical. So it's symbolic and allegorical of transforming and transmuting the hurts, the traumas, the wounds, the what we call negative emotions in our lives and our being into wisdom, into awareness, and into insight. So, in really, this isn't, what we often want to do is just get rid of our negative feelings, but that's impossible. So, what this really involves is transformation is all about having a new perspective. So we basically have to have a perspective on, why in the past did we get hurt? Why were we wounded? And the most important question, why do we put ourselves into situations where these wounds and these traumas and these hurts can happen? Because if we only blame other people and not ourselves, then we just will always be nursing old wounds and we'll never get over them. And this takes a lot of energy to keep your wounds fresh, to be tearing the scabs off and just feeling your old wounds like they're fresh, like they happened just yesterday, even if they happened, 10, 20, 30 years ago. That drains your body and your mind and your soul of energy, and you get sick. So we need this alchemy, this personal alchemy, that relationships give us a very powerful and special opportunity to conduct. It requires us to take responsibility for all of our hurts, wounds, and traumas, and understand how we got into those situations. And once you understand how you got there, it's never going to happen again. And once we understand it, we let the pain go. We can let the hurt go. We can let the wounds go. So that is where the magic of the transformation takes place. When we want awareness, we work on having the awareness, and in my opinion, you ask for help from beings from other dimensions. Another way to put this is divine guidance, beings with a higher perspective. So this is how the alchemy takes place. You have the desire and the motivation, and then you look for tools that help you. So, meditation is a great tool. Therapy is a great tool. Not just talk therapy, but body therapies, getting acupuncture, getting, energy work done, network spinal chiropractic. I'm a big fan of that modality. Yoga, qigong, spending time in nature. Those are tools that help us to do this. So it's a multi-stepped approach. So your motivation to do this work and to find the tools is basic. Well, I don't want to say it's one half of it. It's actually most of it. But then the other crucial piece, especially for like an intimate relationship, you have to find somebody who has the same level of awareness as you and the same motivation to do this alchemical work, to do this transformative work. So, and that's not always that can be a tricky part. But when you become your right self, the right people appear. So, when it comes to relationships, different people do different things. So often, one person can be more aware, one's less aware, or one can be in denial, or one person, might not even be aware of what their wounds are, things like that. So you have to find somebody with the same motivation and the same level of awareness. People can be in denial too. Denial is like a willful lack of awareness. So a lot of different things go into it. But yeah, if I had to answer that question, what is the purpose of relationships? Well, it's an opportunity to conduct alchemy, to basically have a co-alchemist, have a partner to do alchemical work with and to transform with. And again, this transformation, the seemingly magical alchemical transformation, it's all about a change in perspective. So you're not getting rid of your baggage, you're not getting rid of your hurts and wounds. You're viewing them, you're observing them from a different angle, from a higher perspective, from, more of like a fifth dimensional perspective. So the wound becomes wisdom, becomes an insight, becomes awareness. And that helps us break patterns, and then we don't find the same situations. So, yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. We're at 10 minutes, and I'm going to leave it at that. Have a nice one. Have a good weekend.